Sefu turned his face away, his voice tinged with pain. You do. You just don't want to say it. Her voice cracked, tears welling in her eyes. He offers everything I never had. Respect, comfort, a future where people don't laugh at me. Sefu stood, fists clenched, memories flooding his mind. And what about the nights I held you through fever? The days I fed you when no one would sell me bread? When they called you cursed and I kissed your wounds anyway? She looked away, her voice barely audible. I'm tired of suffering, Sefu. But also this marriage could change your life. You will get 500,000 rand, live a better life, even leave this village that hates you because of me. Think of that. He didn't speak again. That night, he left and slept outside, his heart crumbling like dry soil. 3 months later, on a Sunday morning at dawn, the village gathered, waiting to see what the beautiful Nali would choose. The chief stood tall. Chief Baraka. Well? Nali stepped forward. Her eyes were red. Nali, I've made my choice. The crowd leaned in, anticipation thick in the air. But who would she choose? Nali turned to Chief Baraka, placing her hand in his. Nali, I choose a future where I'm not mocked for my appearance, and a future where my husband can live a better life for the sacrifice I made. Gasps echoed through the square. Sefu's shoulders slumped, the weight of heartbreak evident. Sefu screamed from the crowd, I hope you find the happiness you seek. He turned and walked away, leaving whispers and murmurs in his wake. What was meant to be a private decision had become a public spectacle. The villagers' involvement stemmed from the chief's unexpected return and proposal. His offer to Nali was not just a personal matter, but a political statement, challenging the village's norms and Sefu's standing. That very day, the chief whisked Nali away to a place no one in the village knew, not even Sefu. After not eating and beating himself up for some days, Sefu, heartbroken, retreated to his modest home. The walls, once filled with dreams and laughter, now echoed with silence. He sat alone, memories of Nali flooding his mind, their shared struggles, whispered promises, and the hope that love would conquer all. Days later, a procession arrived. Chief Baraka, adorned in opulent robes, approached the village chief, presenting a leather pouch filled with gold coins. This is 500,000 rand, a token of gratitude for Sefu's understanding. Chief Baraka said, almost sounding like he was mocking Sefu. The village chief, hesitant, approached Sefu. Sefu, he said, almost whispering, the chief offers this as compensation. Sefu stared at the pouch, anger boiling within. He grabbed it and hurled it back towards Chief Baraka. Sefu, my love isn't a commodity. You can't buy back what you've stolen. The villagers gasped, witnessing a man torn between love and pride. Sefu turned away, disappearing into the shadows of his home, leaving behind a village grappling with the true cost of choices made. A few weeks after Sefu retreated to his workshop, immersing himself in his craft. The villagers, once critical, now offered sympathetic glances, their earlier warnings ringing hollow. One villager, an old man, said, "Perhaps we were too harsh on him." Another retorted, "He loved her genuinely." Sefu remained silent, his heart mending slowly amidst the rhythm of hammer and chisel. As the sun rose over Katugo, the village buzzed with whispers of Nali's choice. Sefu, once the subject of ridicule for his unwavering love, now faced a new wave of scorn. "He should have known better. Love can't change fate," said the mean old woman who lived across their house. Another retorted, "Imagine being left for wealth. How humiliating." His parents did not show up at all amidst all this. Nali's arrival at Chief Baraka's palace was nothing short of a dream. The grand halls shimmered with golden chandeliers, and the scent of exotic flowers filled the air. She was adorned in the finest silks, her every need attended to by a team of servants. The villagers' whispers faded into the distance, replaced by the allure of luxury and status. At first, Nali reveled in the opulence. She dined on delicacies from distant lands, wore jewels that sparkled like stars, and slept in a bed larger than her entire former home. Chief Baraka, ever the attentive husband, showered her with gifts and affection. But at night, he did not come to her chambers, or let's say he never treated her as a husband would. He never held her hand. There was no love, no friendship or anything. She was just there, a trophy wife. But whenever they sat together to eat zero, that's where they would meet. He spoke of grand plans for their future, of alliances and power, and Nali believed she had found the life she had always longed for. She said to herself, "I'm sure he will find time for me. He is probably busy with work and his other wives." The ceremony was a spectacle of grandeur. Dancers performed intricate routines, and feasts were laid out with delicacies from distant lands. The villagers who attended, though still whispering about the circumstances, couldn't help but be captivated by the display. As the festivities continued into the night, Nali couldn't shake a lingering unease. Amidst the laughter and celebration, she glanced towards the edge of the crowd, half expecting to see Sefu's familiar face, but he was nowhere to be found. However, as days turned into weeks, the cracks in the facade began to show. Chief Baraka's attentions grew possessive. He restricted Nali's movements, limiting her interactions with the outside world. She was no longer allowed to visit the village or receive guests without his permission. The once vibrant palace now felt more like a gilded cage. One evening, as Nali sat alone in her chamber, she overheard a conversation between Chief Baraka and his advisors. They spoke of her as a mere pawn in their political games, a tool to solidify Baraka's power. Her heart sank as she realized that her beauty had been the true prize, not her love or companionship. Worse still, she heard whispers of an old, forbidden ritual, one that required a sacrifice of beauty to cement Baraka's authority over the spiritual realm of the land. Nali was horrified. She realized too late that she had not been chosen for love, but for death. Hidden behind a woven screen, she heard Chief Baraka continuing to speak in low tones to his council of elders. "She is the key," one voice said. "The prophecy demands a bride of unmatched beauty, brought willingly into the covenant. Her blood will secure your throne for 7 generations. Chief Baraka responded, his voice void of affection. "She came of her own accord. They all laughed when I chose her, but they didn't see what I saw. The disfigurement was a curse hiding the jewel we needed." Nali's hands trembled. Her breath caught in her throat. "She must not know," said another advisor. "The ritual must be completed on the eve of the eclipse. If she resists, it will break the covenant." "She won't resist," Baraka replied. "She trusts me." It all became horrifyingly clear. Her beauty had not been a gift in this new life. It had been a curse. Baraka had not saved her. He had hunted her, married her in disguise, not out of love, but to use her as a sacrifice to secure his legacy. The walls around her felt like they were closing in. The days that followed were filled with dread. Nali pretended not to know, hiding her fear behind polite smiles and lowered eyes. But inside, she was breaking. The stress hollowed her cheeks and darkened her eyes. The once glowing skin that had drawn so much attention now turned pale and ashen. Her spirit dimmed, and the servants whispered among themselves, noting the change. Chief Baraka, once doting and attentive, grew distant and cold. His gaze passed over her as though she were already gone. Desperation took root. She tried to send secret messages with trusted maids, but every effort failed. Every door she knocked on led back to Baraka. There was no escape. The day of the eclipse was approaching. Then, on the final night before the sacrifice, Nali was bathed and dressed in ceremonial garments, white linen threaded with gold, the color of a bride, or a lamb to slaughter. A crown of fragrant blossoms was placed on her head. Her hands were painted with symbols she didn't understand, and she was told she would meet her ancestors in a sacred grove. As they led her through the palace under the cover of darkness, the night sky split open with thunder. In the distance, drums beat a rhythm that felt like a death march. They brought her to a stone altar deep in the forest, surrounded by masked elders and flaming torches. Chief Baraka stood before her, wearing a robe of crimson and gold. His eyes, once soft with deceitful affection, now blazed with fevered ambition. He raised a curved ceremonial dagger. But just as the blade descended, a blinding flash of lightning split the sky, striking the altar. The force knocked several elders to the ground, and chaos erupted. Screaming and confusion rang through the grove. A hooded figure emerged from the shadows, grabbing Nali's hand and yanking her into the forest. She didn't look back. Branches tore at her dress. Her feet bled. Her breath came in ragged gasps. But she ran like her life depended on it, because it did. Behind her, the forest groaned as storm and ritual collided. Baraka screamed her name, not with love, but fury. He had lost his sacrifice. The covenant was broken, but Nali was alive. But even as guilt gnawed at her soul, a strange sensation crept over her skin. The wind had changed. The forest felt alive. The trees whispered in a language older than time. The moon, though shrouded by clouds, seemed to pulse above her like a watchful eye. Then, as if drawn by unseen hands, Nali found herself standing at the edge of a moss-covered hill with an opening carved into its base. A cave. Flickering firelight spilled from within. She should have run the other way, but something pulled her forward. Inside, an old woman sat before a fire, her eyes glowing like coals, hair the color of ash. She didn't flinch when Nali entered. She simply gestured for her to sit. "I've been waiting," the woman said, her voice like rustling leaves. Nali, too tired to question, collapsed near the fire. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I am one who sees what others pretend not to. One who knows what lies beneath beauty and behind betrayal. I saw the day you chose gold over truth, and I saw the man who waited in silence as his heart broke." Tears filled Nali's eyes. "I made a terrible mistake." "Yes, but pain is a doorway," the woman said. "And you, Nali, have stepped through it." She leaned closer, placing her wrinkled hand on Nali's forehead. At once, Nali's vision blurred. Images flooded her mind. Visions of Sefu crying alone in their empty hut, of Chief Baraka sacrificing others in secret before her. The fire flared high, and a wind swept through the cave. The old woman vanished like mist, and Nali was alone once more. But she no longer felt weak. Though she was bruised and shaken, something inside her had shifted, like a seed cracking open in the dark. Nali wrapped herself in a cloak the woman had left behind. It shimmered faintly, as though woven from moonlight. She stepped out of the cave and into the night. She didn't know if Sefu would take her back. She didn't know if the villagers would mock her again. But she was no longer the same girl who had chosen gold over love. She was something else now, and whatever lay ahead, she was ready to face it. Her beauty was gone. Not just faded, gone. The magic that had once transformed her face had vanished. Her skin, once smooth and radiant, was now rough and uneven. Angry scars carved across her cheeks and brow. Her jaw hung slightly askew. The illness, or curse, that had disfigured her years ago had returned, but twisted now, harsher than before. Her eyes were swollen, her hair matted, worse than ever. She fell to her knees and stared at her reflection. For a moment, despair clawed at her chest. How can I go back like this? But the old woman's voice echoed in her memory. You must go back. Not to beg, but to rise. So she stood and walked. When the first villager saw her, they screamed. Word spread like wildfire. Doors slammed shut. Mothers pulled children indoors. Whispers flew like daggers. She hesitated. Was this the same place? Or had she taken a wrong turn? A little boy ran past and called. Mama says that's where the carpenter lives, the one who never remarried. Her knees buckled. Sefu had changed, not just his home, but his entire being. When Nali had left him, the chief had given him 500,000 rand. At first, Sefu had refused it, heartbroken and humiliated. But a close friend urged him, don't lose both your wife and the chance to build something. Take it. And so, Sefu did. He expanded his carpentry business, built a house, and lifted others in the village by training young men in the craft. Yet he never married again. His heart remained loyal, even when his hands were busy building a future. When Nali finally stood at his gate, she hesitated. Would he even recognize her? Would he turn her away? But he opened the door before she could knock, as if he had sensed her. He didn't flinch. He didn't ask questions. He simply said, You must be tired. Come inside. Sefu stood by the door, older than she remembered. Leaner. His eyes, once soft and boyish, were now heavy with lessons learned. But something in his bearing had changed. There was quiet dignity in him now. Their eyes met. Nali froze. Her lips trembled. I shouldn't have come, she whispered. I needed to see you. One last time. Sefu didn't speak at first. His eyes scanned her face. Not with pity, not with disgust, but with something deeper. Recognition. You came back, he said softly. I lost everything, she murmured, voice cracking. Even this. She touched her face, then quickly looked away. I see you, he said. Even now I see you. She shook her head. But I loved you then, and even when you left, I never stopped praying you'd remember who you were. Nali's knees buckled, but Sefu caught her. He didn't pull away from her scars. He held her close. The villagers gathered at a distance, stunned into silence. They had expected a scandal, a scene, a man to curse the woman who abandoned him. Instead, they saw him carry her inside like a bride. That night, he said gently. She looked up at him, eyes wet. Why are you still so kind to me? He sat beside her, the silence between them thick and tender. I don't think I ever stopped loving you, he said, even when it hurt. She swallowed hard. But I hurt you, Sefu. I left. I mocked you. I chose a crown over your heart. He reached for her hand, scarred, trembling. A few months after, Nala's face started to heal again, day by day. The scars and big bumps on her face started disappearing, and she started regaining her beautiful skin like before. They both realized where her healing came from. They worked together, Sefu in his workshop, Nali in the garden. She laughed again. He sang again. They broke bread together, not in silence, but in joy. And when they married again, it was quiet, simple, and sacred. No chief, no gold, just a few new friends and a feast of laughter. And when the villagers danced that night, they didn't celebrate perfection. They celebrated redemption. So, my listeners, in a world that chases beauty, wealth, and power, Nali chased them too, and lost herself. But life, like fire, can burn and also refine. She returned not with her old beauty, but with something deeper: humility, truth, and strength forged in suffering. And Sefu? He showed us that love isn't weak, that forgiveness isn't foolish, that a man with vision and patience can turn pain into purpose. They were both broken, but together they were rebuilt. Let their story remind us, true love waits, true beauty returns, and sometimes the most beautiful endings rise from the ashes of our biggest mistakes.